This will be a video on masking in Topaz Studio, the how, the why, and the easier. What's so interesting about Topaz Studio is that this is actually a free download from Topaz, and with just the basic adjustments, because of the way they have constructed the masking options, this has really been a very good program for people who are just getting into photography, need some ability to post-process, but don't want to spend the money on any of the other types of post-processing programs. So the first question you have to ask is, why do you want to mask? Well, you want to mask because overall adjustments are fine for some images, but it's more likely that you're going to need to just adjust certain parts of an image to really make them pop. It also allows you to do exposure blending instead of just using HDR software. And again, this is a way of getting around the idea of having to use expensive software to create better pictures. So how do you do this? Well, in the free version of Topaz Studio, any adjustment can have a mask. And what is a mask? A mask is a grayscale representation of the image, where the white area reveals the adjustment, the black conceals the adjustment, and the gray areas partially reveal the adjustment. Topaz Studio has 5 masking tools. The typical masking tool of a paintbrush, a radial spot brush, a gradient, and 2 very interesting ones that allow you to do sometimes one-click mask, where you can take a luminosity, a particular tone, and that will be masked, or a particular color. So when you're starting to do a mask, you can start with either a white mask, which reveals all of the adjustment, or a black mask, which conceals all of the adjustment. With a white mask, you use a black paintbrush to conceal areas that you want the effect to be blocked, and with a black mask, you use a white paintbrush to reveal the areas that you want the effect to be seen. We're going to talk about the one-click masks as I demonstrate the use within Topaz Studios, but as you can see here, this is a very dark picture where I just clicked using the luminosity mask, and you can see over on the red box where the mask is being shown that I've selected just the dark area. Okay, so let's go on to Topaz Studio. I've already opened it up. I'm using Topaz Studio here again as a standalone application, because again, I'm trying to convince people that you don't need to use Lightroom, you don't need to use Photoshop, you don't need to use Capture One, you don't need to use these other programs that cost money, and with a little bit of knowledge, you can really make this program sing. So I've got a group of images here that I'm taking them out of a folder, and just so that I can pick them all up, and then I'm going to drag it into Topaz Studio, and then I can put this away. What's interesting about this is that Topaz Studio allows you to do this kind of thing where you can open up a whole bunch of programs at the same time. Now, none of these images are really what I would call special. I'm using them to demonstrate techniques here. So let's look at this one. This is all these pictures were taken within the last month now when I was down in San Diego. I got up early in the morning and saw a really spectacular sunrise. And after the sunrise was over, I was still at the beach, and I saw these birds against the still interesting background of the color of the sunrise. And to keep the tones in the sunrise and the sea, I had to really underexpose a bit of the bird. So what I'm going to try to do right now is create a mask of the bird, so that will stand out, but still I have the nice tonality in the shore. So I'm going to use a basic adjustment. Remember, anything above the line here are all free. So I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. I'm going to increase the shadows, okay, and I'm really going to pump up the clarity. Okay, now don't worry about what's going on over here, because that's all going to get masked out. So here I am, and I've gotten some detail in the bird, all right? And I want to now create a mask. Now I'm going to go over here, and that's the add mask for this basic level, basic adjustment layer. Now, I don't want to start with a white mask, because what I really want to do is start with a black mask and take a brush with some white paint, and I'm going to brush on over the bird. Now, first thing I'm going to do is make this a little bit larger, because I want to be able to sort of see what I'm doing really closely. Now, that's probably too big of a brush, so I'm going to reduce the radius down a little bit, and I'm also going to reduce down the softness of the brush. So I have, what's nice about Topaz masking capabilities is that you see the area that you're going to mask is within the red ring, and the feathering is the green ring. Now, I also want to make sure that I've got the edge aware on. All right. So I'm going to just sort of take some of the stuff in the middle here, because that way I don't have to worry really too much about it. And what you'll, of course, I forgot to change it to white paint. I left it on black from the last time I used it. So here we go. And you can already see that we're starting to get what looks like a bird. Now, I want to just go carefully towards the edge. And what's nice is that the feather area, if the red ring stays within the area, so the edge of the bird, I'm not going to actually create too much of a mask outside of the bird area. So I'm going to very carefully go in here, and now as I get over here, some of this I'm going to need to make, and you can see over here that we're starting to look like a bird. So I'm going to reduce the radius down a bit. I'm going to make it really small. Okay, that may be too small. So I want to go just a little bit bigger. I can actually make it bigger by using the cursor keys. Again, I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger, and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to make that a little smaller, and I'm going to add in this even a little smaller, so I can really get into the beak area and have this all part of the mask. And if you look over here, that's exactly what's happening. I'm going to show my loop there. You can see how the bird's starting to come out. All right, so now I'm going to move. There's a nice way to navigate here by going up to the bar here and hit the nav. All right, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger using the cursor keys. And again, I'm going to try to get more and more of this area. I'm going to make this go down quite a bit. As long as I keep the red circle within the body and feathers of the bird, I'm not going to have a problem with getting a halo around the mask. Okay, one last thing to get the edge of the tail feathers in, and over here. And now when we look over there, we've got a pretty good looking bird. Now the legs are probably going to be even more difficult because they've got a little space between them, and in that space you can see the background of the beach. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again and bring it down here so I can really make sure I got my okay, so I'm going to go down here and just get those little bits of the feet. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, the more time you spend on it, the better it is. And you can see over here, it really does look like a bird. Now, what's important to do is to sort of look and make sure that you got everything. So I'm gonna go back and look over here. I wanted to make sure. It looks to me like there's a little dip there, and so I'm just going to increase the size of the brush a little bit. And does that go away? Yeah, I think it does. Okay, so we've picked it up. Sometimes it's hard to make sure that you've gotten all of the mask. Okay, so now we have the mask for the bird. And what's nice about that is that we can actually copy that mask and use it on another layer. So I'm going to put another adjustment here, and I'm going to try another basic adjustment. Okay, and I'm going to really first warm it up a little bit and then pump up the saturation, just to give it a little feel of that early morning. Now, sometimes even putting a little red in it can be useful. But I don't want to have that in here. Okay, there's no reason having the bird having that. So I'm going to put a mask here. But first, before I put the mask in, I'm going to open the other mask. And I'm going to go to this little stack there. And I can copy that mask. All right. Now I'm going to go to this layer and I'm going to paste the mask. Okay. But I don't want the bird to be the only area where I've put that warmth in. I want everything but the bird. So I'm just going to inverse it. And that's how you invert the mask. All right. So now we have sort of this warm beach and the gray bird on it. And whether you think this is a great picture or not, I don't really care. It is just to show how to use the brush, how to copy a mask, and put it in another one. Very useful. Okay, so let's get rid of this one because we don't need that anymore. I want to show you another one which uses a different type of masking. And this is using the luminosity masks. Now, I'm going to go to, there are 3 images here that I took with a bracket exposure. They're one stop apart. And it's very easy to hand hold 3 pictures, together. And you could, if you had Lightroom or other software that creates HDRs, you could combine these 3 pictures and end up having an HDR. Now, but you don't need HDR software to do exposure, what's called exposure blending. And I'm going to start here with the darkest image. This is nicely exposed for the sky and the area, the park area that's underneath it. This is a Chicano Park in San Diego, and it's famous for these Mexican wall arts. Happens to be a picture of Frida Kahlo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a basic adjustment here, and I'm actually not going to do anything with that right now. I'm going to then put another adjustment, which is again one of these things that it comes with, it's called an image layer. And you can just click on that, and you can actually put another image right on top of this. All right. So let's take the lightest one. All right. And let's get back to here. What you do is you just drag this into there. All right. Now, for the moment, I'm not going to do anything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this area here. Okay, let me turn this off. And I'm going to go to this level, this basic adjustment, and I'm going to go to the mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this thing called luminosity, just so you can see that a little bit better. Click on luminosity, and then I'm going to try to take the darkest areas. And you can see right away that the darkest areas are masked out. Okay? So I'm going to say, okay, just leave it that way. Go to the 3 levels, copy the mask, close this, open this mask up, paste this mask, and then invert it. So now what's happened is that we have on level 1, we're showing the light areas and we've masked out the dark areas. On level 2, we've masked out the light areas and only let the dark ones come through. Now, each one of these can now be corrected in addition. So if I wanted to make another adjustment here, say by increasing the clarity, you can do that. And I can also go here and say bring up the saturation, and that will change only in the outside because we've masked off the inside. So this is a very easy way to blend exposures without HDR and using the luminosity one-click mask. Very useful property in Topaz. Now here's another one that I want to show you. Now this is the Santa Fe Railroad Terminal in downtown San Jose. It's an old building, has some neat architecture to it. And I'm going to use this to sort of try to make the sky darker and the sign, which at night is lit up in red, have that red come out. Okay, so what's the first thing we're going to do? The first thing we're going to do is going to put in a basic adjustment, and we're going to decrease the exposure because that's going to sort of make somewhat the sky a little bit darker and more blue. We'll pump up the saturation a bit so that gets it there. Do we want to add any warmth to it? No, I don't think so. All right, but I don't want the rest of this area. I want to be able to see the detail down here in the building, so I'm going to want to create a mask. Now, one of the tools that you can use is a gradient tool. Now, the red will block I've got this upside down. Let's get it right side up. I want the white area to show through. I think that the thing that drives me crazy about this program is this gradient thing, because you don't have a lot of control with it. But if you finally get it in the right place, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to have the sky come through and the building, none of the effect on the building. So let's go up here just a little bit and bring this down just a little bit. So we have a little bit of a gradient. If you move the white one, one of the things that helps is that if you click on the middle white and hold the shift key down, you can move it without switching the gradient. Now I can sort of get it more into place. Bring this down. Don't really need to do that, but actually as I watch this, I want to make sure that we don't lose any shadow detail in here. So okay, now we got a nice blue sky. And just to remember, this is what it was beforehand. This is what it is now. Okay, so let's close up this. Now, what I do now is I'm going to add a second adjustment layer, and I'm really going to increase the exposure. Okay, way more than I would really want to do that, because I'm trying to get some big distinction between the letters and the backdrop. Then I'm going to go to my mask, go to first color, see if color will do this. And color actually does a pretty good job. If I went on the blue, the white letters stand out. So let's see if we can change the range and see if we can make that even stand out even more. Not bad. I think I would go all the way over in that way. All right. So now I've got Santa Fe standing out. All right. And now I'm going to take a brush and make it kind of big. Oops. And I'm just going to, too much. I'm just going to brush out everything that isn't necessary. All right, so I'm brushing on all this to create this mask that only includes the word Santa Fe. And you can see over there, we've really gotten rid of just about everything. Right along here. Okay. So now we have that. All right. Now I'm going to copy this mask, because the next thing I'm going to do is add a color overlay, and I'm going to put a red and I'm then going to put a mask, and it's the mask that I copied, so I'm going to paste the mask. Okay, and so now you just see sort of a red tint in the mask. Okay, so here we use the combination of luminosity and color and the brush to create a an effective mask. Okay, we've got one more to do. Okay, so here, this is another view of the Santa Fe terminal in downtown San Diego, and this dome against the skyscraper in the back is kind of a neat image, although it was done around midday, and it was kind of a flat lighting, and I want to try to change this into some more dramatic lighting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to make this a little darker. So I'm going to decrease the exposure a little bit. And I'm going to really pump up the clarity. I like the edge effects that we're getting over here on the dome and in the building behind. This sort of hotspot area, I'm going to decrease the highlights a little bit. Not a whole lot. And I'm going to give it a little bit of warmth. All right. Now, but I still want to be able to make that, now we've got sort of this yellow gold area here, and I want to contrast that against the blue of the skyscraper behind. So one thing that I'd like you to start to use is tone curves. Now, tone curves are really nice because they can, for example, you can put, more contrast in, and that sort of looks interesting. But what also you can do is go to individual colors. Now, if I wanted to, for example, I can go to the blue tone curve, and I can just increase the blues. All right, and that's nice because I get to the blue tones I want, but although it puts perhaps too much blue in the building with the dome, so I'm going to want to put a mask on this. So let's see how we can do it. Can we do it with luminosity, or do we have to do this with a brush? Can we use a spot or a gradient? I'm going to first try the color. And what you can see here is that we've gotten a pretty good mask, although we're missing this one part here, but it actually looks not too bad. So I'm gonna just say, okay, but the problem with this is, remember that I've got to inverse this because I want the background, that black area, to be white. So let's just go that way. So now we have that, what we were trying to do, make the blue of the skyscraper contrast against the yellow of the dome. So that's pretty good. Now I could also then, if I wanted to, put in some more tone here so that we're painting out some of that effect of the blue. I don't know if it's really necessary, but if you're going to do it, you got to do it the whole way. Okay? Because remember, we made that underlying more yellow because added the warmth. Okay? So that's pretty good. All right? We could probably add one more tone curve overall to just make things just that little bit more increased contrast, which typically gives you the sense of a pop. So putting in a slight S curve, and this is a typical S curve. You got sort of, you lower the things in the dark areas and you raise it up in the highlights, and you get a pretty nice image. So let's go back. Here's the original, pretty dull. And here it is the way we ended it. So again, using a combination of a combination of masks, using the different masking tools will help you really make your images pop. Hope this helps, and we'll see you again. Thanks.